Hi, everyone. Thanks for coming tonight to our Brain Cafe. I'm Aaron Jungles, one of Everett's co-artistic directors. Tonight's Brain Cafe is going to touch on issues related to mental health, something I'm sure we could all use a little help with these days. Before I get started, I just have a couple of announcements to make. We're recording tonight's program, so if you come on video and ask a question during the Q&A part of the thing, we're going to take that as consent to be part of the video. So just so that you know that. And then I have to thank our funders. We received funding for tonight's program from the Rhode Island Commerce Department's Hotels, Arts and Tourism Engagement Service and Resilience Grant. So we thank them for that. We have the cast of Good Grief with us tonight. We're going to have them say hello quickly. Grace Bevilacqua.
Hi, everybody.
Laisha Crum.
Hello.
Joseph Henderson.
Hi, everyone.
Justine Jungles. That's Justine there. And Tiana Whittington.
Hi, everybody.
And we also have two guest presenters with us tonight, our longtime collaborator, David Medeiros.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, David.
Hi.
And Glenn Williams. Glenn Williams is a formerly incarcerated individual who has been working for the past 10 years on reentry programs. And Glenn is going to share with us some of his experience, some of his background, and some of the work that he's doing. Glenn, are you able to put your camera on and unmute?
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Glenn. Yeah, so if you would just tell us a little bit about your background and you know what some of the work that you've been doing, we'd love to hear it. Thank you.
So my name is Glenn Williams. I am a reentry advocate and the director and co-founder of Our House Boston, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on assisting individuals and families that are impacted by incarceration and faced with challenges to successful reintegration. I'm also a level 1 student at the Internal Family Systems Institute, an organization that I believe is doing some very innovative work in terms of creating a model that uniquely resonates with hard to reach populations. My own long journey to therapy and IFS began years back when I finally came to the realization that I could definitely benefit from some counseling and that it was actually okay for me to seek help and support for myself. A tiny bit of background is I grew up in a family in a neighborhood that contained a lot of strength, that contained a lot of love, but they both also experienced a lot of poverty, a lot of violence, a lot of substance abuse, and a lot of trauma, extreme trauma. And so, like a lot of my peers, a lot of my close peers, I attempted to cope with my reality by engulfing myself in the streets and in gang culture. And so basically that's the culture that I existed in until the age of 19, when I participated in a shooting that unfortunately took the life of an innocent man. And as a result of that incident, I served 21 years in prison. During most of my incarceration, I did vocational programs. I embraced spirituality. I joined various support groups, and I pursued a small amount of education. But I totally avoided any type of counseling or any type of therapy. I was taught that Black people just didn't do therapy, and especially Black men didn't do therapy. The notion was that if you had any type of personal challenge, you either confided in a loved one or you just simply stuffed it. So even though I needed a treatment or therapy, I just suffered in silence. And so, but one day I met an older gentleman who had been incarcerated for a long time. And I noticed that he always had this sense of peace, a sense of harmony, and this sense of balance. And I wanted to know why. And he simply told me because he went and saw a therapist each week. And so that kind of changed my perspective on therapy. And I started doing what I called dabbling in therapy. And this was towards the end of my incarceration. During the year that I got out in 2010, I was admitted into a program called the Granada House. It actually inspired my efforts to create my own program in 2015. But during this experience at the Granada House, I learned about just different models, CBT. I learned about motivational interviewing as I was going to school to be a substance abuse counselor. And in the year of 2019, I believe it was, I was introduced to the IFS model during a partnership with an organization called the Jericho Circle Project. And so my organization partnered with the Jericho Circle Project. This organization goes into prison and work with individuals around tearing down emotional walls. And so they would come into my program and work with a lot of the individuals I worked with using the IFS model. And this is how I started learning about the model and how it worked. I started learning about parts work. And I saw how the individuals in the population that I work with who are really resistant to most forms of therapy. But I saw how these individuals were favorably responding to the guys that were trained in the IFS model. And so that inspired me to start following the model, studying the model. And I eventually got into the IFS level 1 training. And so I've been in it for a few months now. And I've gotten a lot out of it, not just for my own work with the clients that I work with, but for myself. So it's given me a lot of personal benefit and growth, and it's given me the opportunity to work on my own parts, to work on my own healing process. And so the goal is to become more knowledgeable in the model and to incorporate it more into the work that I'm doing and in the work that's being done in the community. So hopefully I'll see the work more, and we'll see the work more in a lot of urban areas and with what we call hard to reach populations. So with that, I say thank you for giving me the opportunity to share.
Great. Thank you so much, Glenn. That's great to hear. And awesome that you found IFS and are able to integrate it the way you're going to be. Which brings us to our journey to IFS. We were working on Good Grief. And as we were working on Good Grief, we started working with the performers' real life experiences that a lot of them were pretty traumatic, and that was challenging and felt a little bit daunting. I was reading Bessel van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score, at that time, and he talks about IFS, internal family systems therapy, in that book. So I was inspired and I found this IFS workbook and started bringing it into rehearsals, and it really seemed to mesh well with the theater and dance work that we were doing. And we were excited about it, but we were also all beginners in it and didn't know much about it except for what the workbook was guiding us in. So it was kind of like the blind leading the blind. But at the same time, I had reached out to David Medeiros, who was our longtime collaborator. He'd done many brain cafes with us in the past, and he did clinical work with our youth when they needed it. He was just very generous with us all of the time. And I reached out to him because I was like, felt like we needed clinical support in our rehearsals. And it just so happened that he had actually been trained in IFS previously and was using it in his practice. And so he was really able to infuse our process with IFS and kind of jumpstart that element for us, which became so central to the work. So David is now going to give a little intro about what IFS is for those people who may not know, and then tell us a little bit about what it was like for him to come into a process and ask to be the therapist in a dance theater development process. So David, take it away.
Great. Well, I'm technologically challenged. Here we go. Hi, everyone. So Aaron, let me ask you, is it possible to ask the people that are viewing, are they familiar with IFS at this point, or?
If everyone wants to unmute themselves, there's 30 people, so it might be a little cumbersome.
Okay, then, well.
People can put it in the chat.
It might be good just to give a quick overview. You don't have to go too deep into it, but.
Okay. So I had been studying IFS for about a year with Ann Stinko, Mike Elkin, and Rena Dubin. And when Aaron asked me to come, I was thrilled to do so. And IFS, essentially, it's this idea, it came from family systems therapy. And it really is that we as individuals are comprised of these two really entities, these parts that we all have, and self. And self is really our core, our essence, sometimes referred to as the Holy Spirit. And the qualities of self are things like curiosity, compassion, connectedness, being calm, clarity, courage, creativity, and I'm forgetting one, but I'll get it later. And then we have parts. And the idea with parts are that we all have parts. In IFS, they really consist of exiles, which are parts that we've really subjugated or sequestered out of our consciousness or awareness oftentimes, and then managers and firefighters. And the idea of parts, for those of you that may not be familiar with it, it may be simple as saying, like tonight, a part of me wants to eat about a gallon of Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and a part of me doesn't want to do that. But they're really, really conflicting parts, and they really have their own kind of sense of purpose and drive. So what happened is when I went to see Aaron, what I started to do to try to help out was start to do demo sessions with the the actors, the performing artists, and we filmed those demo sessions as well. And then we did sculpting as well for those of you that have started the IFS training. And for me, it really combines the most wonderful things of doing this kind of work, especially in trauma, which is the performing arts. I'm a former musician, and IFS, which is just this incredible non-pathologizing model. Excuse me. And then aspects of Bessel van der Kolk's The Body Keeps the Score, which was originally an article and then expanded into a book. And those things have really informed the work. And my little, I would say my contributions like this and Everett's contribution is just gigantic. And I'm just really pleased and honored to be a part of it. And that's it.
Well, we certainly couldn't have done it without you, David. And we appreciate you so much for everything that you did for us during the process and have continued to do since.
Thank you.
As David said, you know, he did sessions with us, and one of those sessions that he did with Laisha, one of the early on ones, made it into the show almost verbatim. You know, we edited it a little bit and condensed it, but mostly it's just went right in the show. And in it, Laisha is talking about these painful memories that she thinks she's passed, but they keep coming back and they keep having these negative effects on her. So right now I'm gonna just show you a clip where she's describing the effects that these memories have on her. So just bear with me 1 second.
My senses shut down. I see with no reaction, just blank emotion. I wander with no sense of smell. Sounds hypnotize me. A prisoner of my thoughts. I taste little. I touch, but feel nothing. This is the thing most absent. I desire these sensations, crave them like an addict. Oh, to feel anything again, but my body is numb.
So now, Laisha, if you'll turn your camera on. So when we were talking the other day, Laisha told us that you have just recently gone on to do some EMDR work, which is eye movement desensitization. What's the R stand for, David?
Reprocessing.
Reprocessing.
Desensitization reprocessing.
And that you learned some more about this numbing aspect. So if you could just tell us about that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, so I don't know where to start off. When we first kind of started this process, I had a very numb feeling as described in the show. And as time went on, I got to sit down with David and try to have a session with him. It was very difficult because it's just hard, something hard to me to talk about. I'm nervous right now, sorry. But yeah, Aaron.
That's okay, Laisha. So what led you to want to do the EMDR work?
Yes, so over the past few months, of course, we've been through this quarantine situation. And as you know, a lot of people have been coming up with mental disorders, you know, being home, not working, whatever. And I happened to have an experience or an episode, I would say, where I was panicking, like I felt like I couldn't breathe, and I felt hyper aware of everything, and it was just a really weird time. So I went to the hospital, I got checked. There was like, everything's fine. I'm trying to explain to them, and then I was like, I know I sound crazy, but this is what I'm feeling right now, and there was nothing that they could do for me. So I reached out to David, who referred me to someone, Jason Dollard. I don't know if you're on here, but that was my therapist, and we did some EMDR work virtually. And basically that's what kind of set it off, was like the feeling, because at first I felt numb when we was doing the project, and then it kind of went away, and then we got into quarantine, and then it became like a very strong presence that was constant. I couldn't go to work, I couldn't leave my house. I was like in a shell. The sounds hurt my ears, everything. The light hurt my eyes, and I'm still going through it now, but it's easier. I don't know if I'm getting used to it or whatever, but through the process, I have uncovered or unburdened some of my parts, and yeah, it's helped me move on.
Great. Thank you, Aisha. Is there anything else you want to say about that, or?
Not at this moment. Maybe if people got questions later or something.
Sounds good. So next we're going to share a clip from Joseph, where he is working with his anger part and getting to know it a little bit. So we'll share that, and then we'll hear from him.
I'm just trying to calm down and breathe right now because I'm feeling a little overwhelmed. Everything's racing. I feel tight in the chest. I feel pent up, and I can just feel a lot of stress. But I have been working on ways on how to fix these feelings.
I didn't know you could do that.
I'm working on it. That's why I want to get to know you. I can sense a lot of sadness mixed with the anger.
I don't want people to see us as angry. When everything goes black, it gets scary. I can't remember things. And then I'm tired and weak. Like that time I got mad at Dad. Before I knew it, my blood was on the walls. I had destroyed the entire room, and he was on top of me, and I was trying to break free. It's really hard to recover from that. I have headaches, a sore throat, and my hands hurt because I hit stuff. And the people around me are scared.
I know. It can be really hard to recover from those episodes. I can sense you don't want to respond with anger.
I need us to be safe.
How would you rather be?
To be happy and in a better place, and to know that I'm a good human. I don't want the past to control me. I want to learn from it. I can feel how much friendlier I was as a kid. I was just happy to be alive. I didn't think about things like I do now. Everything made sense. Now nothing makes sense. I just want to trust everyone around me again.
I feel you on that. Remember we were 13 and Dad got us a house, a dog, a car, and had the whole family with him? That's what I want. A family, and to love everything around me again.
All right, so Joseph, if you'll undo your video, turn your video on. You mentioned to us, Joseph, that when someone in the audience connected with that anger part, that it had an impact on you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, the gentleman that had reached out and he had said something. He was older than me, and you could just tell when he started talking, like he was doing a lot of self-reflecting, like throughout the whole entire show. And when he came out and he said that, he was really grateful that I had shared my story, and just kind of gave me was praising me for figuring that stuff out about myself, and it gave him hope that he can, go ahead and do that himself. So it was kind of just, for me, it stuck with me, like there's always time to work on this stuff, because I kind of, at this time when we started working on this show, I kind of felt like, I was like, damn, I'm really late in the game and I'm really behind with a lot of things, and I feel like I'm never gonna achieve anything. But it kind of just helped me like realize like I'm young and I have time to do those things. So yeah, about it.
Cool. I know you also are doing the level 1 training. You're in the same training session as Glenn. Would you be willing to talk a little bit about what that's been like for you and what you're getting out of it?
Yeah. At first, going into it, there's a lot of people that are therapists that have actually been doing it, like are different in different fields, and have been doing this for a while. And I'm just a dancer in my head, and I kind of forget that like some of the work that I do around with Everett, working in the DYS system in Massachusetts, and some of that and other work I've done with youth throughout the course of being here. So it's been really fun for me actually to just sit down and be able to be the therapist, be the clinician, and sometimes just watch and pick up different techniques from all of these different people and their experiences, and kind of being in the same boat that they are, because we're all learning. So we all kind of have zero experience at this point. Some of us have heard about it through our own way. So it's been really fun for me.
And have you learned anything about your own parts through the process yet, or have you not done that kind of thing yet?
Yes. The thing I like about it the most is every session is a real session. Any session that we've done, they're all genuine. Like everyone is really compassionate and trying to help and trying to learn themselves. So it's there's some things that I've been able to talk about and experience, especially this has been a heavy time in my life right now. There's definitely things that I've been able to connect with by doing this training.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing that. And again, we'll be doing questions at the end. So if people have questions for different people, you can hold on to them and we'll open it up for that. So when we were working on Good Grief, we did some mask work. And we really believe mask work opens up the subconscious and allows parts that we're not really aware of that are in us to come out, which is similar to IFS in a lot of ways, similar to parts work. And what we did is we just had a pile of masks on tables and a pile of costumes on racks, and the performers could just make a character and then improvise with the character and explore it and develop it. So right now I'm going to just share a clip of Grace and Laisha's characters that they developed. So Grace, I wanted to ask you then how you see this character in relationship to sort of the IFS idea of parts, and what role this part plays in your life as you think about it.
Yeah. So it's interesting, as an artist, you are always playing characters. I think especially when you're doing improv, where nothing's made up, like Aaron said, you just have a bunch of cloth in front of you and you get to pick it up and play. Things come out of you that you're not that you don't plan, and there are these characters that you I started to realize while doing the IFS that these characters are actually parts. You know, some of them especially are these parts that actually live inside you and have been inside you for a long time. Like this clown character that made it into the show. For me, I know that that character has been around for a long time. He's shown up in other Everett pieces, and I see him in my everyday life. So, so then once you make those connections that these characters are really parts that live inside you, you get curious about them naturally. So in thinking about this part, I feel like he really came out of necessity in my life. I think that growing up in some stressful, difficult situations, I think our systems naturally need a relief. And for me, I think that came as comic relief, especially because I also have parts that are very kind of dark, heavy, and can feel like all encompassing, like, you know, this mood is all I have. And so I think my system needed to balance that. And this comedic character, what was that for me, balance. And I love him for what he did for me, and what he does for me, being that comedic relief. And I love playing him. It's just such a fun feeling when you get to be that goofy and make all those mannerisms. He's just so fun. And I think another part of his role, because these parts in us have roles they play. It's kind of like they have jobs. And I think part of his job too was to growing up diffuse situations for other people, and to try and control, you know, what may have been stressful and overwhelming by bringing in this lightheartedness, to kind of break that for myself and for other people. And so as I thought about him more and his lightness and his funniness, I also really think that he's a courageous character. I think he has a lot of courage and strength in him to be that light, beautiful person in situations that are the opposite. I think he has courage in that, and also in his vulnerability. I think he's just so out there with his love and just who he is. And it's something that I strive for more in my life, you know, to be vulnerable, to be okay with who I am, and just be out there like he is. So what I've been thinking about recently with these characters that we play and these parts we have, that as you get to know them, you can have kind of some more control over using them, and, you know, saying, I love this guy. I'm going to bring him around more. I want to remember that I have him, you know, when these other parts are pulling me in certain directions or in certain situations. I can bring this clown character up and be light and be vulnerable. So it's just been fun to get to know him, and through the piece get to know lots of other parts, and to feel like as I start to know my whole system, I can have some say in which parts I want to, you know, give room to grow and lead. And yeah, I don't know if any of that made sense, but I'm done.
Made perfect sense. Thank you so much. That was beautiful. All right, so we're gonna keep moving along. Now we're gonna show a clip of Tiana working with her guilt part, and sort of our depiction of an unburdening that was a little bit staged for the show, but didn't happen in real life until later. So here we go.
I have this one part that I want to work with, but it's a big one. The guilt that I carry for allowing things to happen the way they did. There was something that was done to me.
So Tiana, I know for the show, we kind of tried to like give it a hopeful sort of spin at that point, and maybe went further than you really were, but you told us that you just recently, well, you sought out an IFS therapist after the Good Grief process ended, right? And you told us just recently that you actually worked and did some unburdening with this part or a related part. Do you want to just kind of tell us what that was?
Yeah, absolutely. So the beginning of my process in seeking a new IFS therapist, it was not hard in the sense that David had, really reached out and sent this list of IFS therapists that take insurance, and I was able to get matched with Christy, who has been amazing throughout the entire process. But when doing it, I was finding that I was getting this hijacked feeling, for lack of a better term, a lot. It almost felt like there was this overwhelming frenzy of parts that would, really just continue to not allow me to function throughout the day. So in exploring that some more, I did take a break from therapy because I thought that it was the therapy and that maybe it just was too intense for me. And after some time, I decided to go back. So I just started going back about 8 months ago. During that time, I was going to therapy. I was touching base with Christy about everything that was going on. And she had decided, this could be something that's a little bit more than maybe just parts, and recommended that I go and see a psychiatrist. When I went to that psychiatrist, I was diagnosed with bipolar 2 disorder, and started getting on medications that kind of keep me, how I am now with all of you. Thankfully, that really was what set off that unburdening process and allowed me to really connect with my parts. So once I started doing that, things were going great in therapy. And I started to open up more, just talking a little bit about how I always had this part, and that I feel that there's a very big difference between guilt and shame talk. And I noticed, instead of when doing something wrong, maybe because I was on the meds or anything like that, instead of saying, you know what, Tiana, that was an irresponsible thing to do, or that was a silly thing to do, I would say things to myself like, you're an idiot, you're so dumb, why would you do that, no one's ever going to listen to you now, things like that. And I really wanted to just start changing the narrative of how I felt like I was being perceived by the outside, by my peers and things like that, based on the experiences that I was having. In doing that, the unburdening process was nothing like that I have ever experienced with working with my other parts. We started doing things where I went to go really touch base with this shame part. And in the process, I got kind of blocked a little bit by this part that was just really, really tired. And in the process of, really trying to build a relationship and getting to know that part, it was almost like, I don't even know what the right word is, I guess, like a teleportation, for lack of a better term. It was almost like I would continuously move into these different parts that would have really led me to that last part, that part that was so shameful. So it was almost like going through time, because when I do parts work, I tend to be more of a visual person. So I kind of ran into this 6-year-old part who had these issues with responsibility and always feeling like they had to take care of everyone, but could never really take care of themselves. Then went into this older part who felt like was ready to take that role and take a step back. And there was no one really there that was able to take care of me on that level, not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't at that time. And just going through those different pieces. And once I got to that shame part, it was difficult. It was emotional. I think it was more intense than anything that I've personally ever experienced. But it was just talking about how I have these parts that have always felt so responsible, to be this most perfect person and try to be the best for everyone and take care of people and put them under my wing. And I just was really cracking under that pressure and unburdening and really taking a step away from that part and getting that part to play a different role in my life and in my inner system has changed everything for me so far. So it's been a great experience overall. I just did that unburdening process a couple of weeks ago, so I'm still, figuring out life now that I have that little piece off, but I definitely feel like there's a huge weight off my shoulders. Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Tiana. That's beautiful. So now we're going to see a clip of Justine working with our version of a sand tray. We didn't really know about sand trays when we were doing this, but afterwards we found out about them. So it's a little bit similar to that. And she's using it to sort of process some thoughts about her father. So we'll look at that.
Since I was a teenager, I helped my dad a lot, going to the liquor store, lending him money. When he lost his license after driving his car into the ocean, I started getting his groceries too. I wondered if he only called because he needed me. I felt manipulated by him and mad at myself for even loving him. He could be so mean if he ran out of cigarettes or coffee and I wasn't right there to bring him more.
Hello? Dad, what's up?
Justine?
Yeah, what's up?
I think I'm ready to cash in my checks.
You're what?
I got nowhere to go from here. No one to see. Nothing to do.
What are you talking about? You never talk like this.
I'm sorry, Pumpkin. I shouldn't be talking about these things. Sometimes I forget you're still a kid. I guess I got no one else to call. Where are you?
I'm in Galilee with Mom. We're going to get something to eat.
I'm so sorry, Pumpkin. You should go eat. I'm sorry to get you involved.
I want to talk to you.
You should just go eat.
I'm not even hungry anymore.
Go eat, I'll be fine.
Just promise you're going to call me later.
It's not that simple, Justine.
Just promise.
My mom would get so angry at him because he would drink and party with us kids and cause so many problems in our lives. He wondered why we even loved him and wanted to be around him when he could be so vicious to us and never did anything a father should do for his kids. I asked myself the same thing. One time, we got in an awful fight, and I was so mad I went to his house and took a recycling bin full of his beer bottles and smashed it all on his front steps. Then he came over to my mom's house and smashed bottles all over the driveway. I remember screaming and crying and promising myself I'd never ever help him again. But eventually, we made up. And I went back to running his errands and lending him money.
So Justine, do you want to just tell us a little bit about the impact that working on Good Grief and learning about IFS has had on your life?
Yes, absolutely. So working on Good Grief has had a huge impact on my life. Just to touch upon like what that scene was about in terms of growing up with my dad, who really struggled with heavy substance abuse issues and mental health issues. This process has really allowed me a lot of processing that trauma and actually reconnecting with him. And also reconnecting with the parts that have come from my childhood. Some of them probably being stuck in that time, you know, and I wasn't even aware that they existed until I was really introduced to this type of therapy. You know, I knew I had resentment towards my father and different things like that, but there's just so many different parts now that I've discovered and things in my life now, you know, certain behaviors I have or patterns in my life that I've really been able to trace back to those difficult times. And the beautiful thing about this whole process is, you know, I actually interviewed my dad for the show, and I actually was able to ask him if he remembered, like he called me a few times, you know, basically saying he was going to kill himself. And he said he didn't even remember that. So that's how bad like the substance abuse issues were. But it was just a beautiful experience. You know, he allowed me to record him and really was vulnerable with me. And yeah, it was beautiful. So I've been able to continue to myself see an IFS therapist, and thankfully through the process of this whole creating this show, was able to get a scholarship to do the IFS level 1 training that Glenn is doing, that Joseph and Grace have done as well. And that was a life-changing experience, definitely. The folks I met there and just going deeper into this therapy model has been tremendous in my life. And it's amazing to see, like, just reconnecting with the cast to do this, to see what a deep impact this whole process, you know, not only IFS, but just the process of making this show has had on all of our lives, really. It's a beautiful thing. And yeah, I'm excited now. I'm actually pursuing my master's degree in social work, and with the goal of continuing to interweave therapy and theater. That's something that I've just fallen in love with. And so also just want to tell everyone about, you know, the work we do at Everett. Everett is, for anyone not familiar, Everett is the company that we're all a part of, and we're a theater and dance company. And we've been working with youth who experience trauma for years now, kids all the way from, you know, 4th grade up to 25 years old. And we've worked in schools all around, you know, the New England area, the juvenile justice system, as well as our own theater, where we get to work really closely with students and build a relationship over years. And a lot of kids, you know, will tell you, like, our theater is a second home to them. So going forward, I know, like, me, Joseph, a lot of us who are pursuing more education in therapy and mental health, you know, we have dreams of even opening up like a little group home that's attached to our theater and just really going deeper with all this work. So just want to tell you just a little bit about like some of the work we do, you know, taking IFS and mixing it with theater and working with these amazing youth that we get to work with. They take right to the IFS, and like just how David was saying in the beginning, you know, a part of you wants to do this, a part of you wants to do that. Like we have one youth that we've worked a lot with what he calls, the cool thing is that everyone gets to decide what their own parts are called. Their parts like kind of name themselves. So he has like his common sense part and his street mentality part. And he'll tell us like, yeah, these parts are always like at war inside of me. They're always like arguing with each other, trying to get the upper hand. And in IFS, we call that like a polarization. And yeah, the kids just take to it so quick. And the beautiful thing is it lends itself to theater so beautifully, because you get up on your feet and like the kids themselves can direct us. So they'll be like, Joseph, you be my common sense. Justine, you be my street mentality. And then they'll direct us and have us have a scene with each other. So it's like externalizing the internal dialogue that they're having. And then another, you know, we mix in all different types of techniques with the IFS. Another one is this technique we use with these little figures. Like you guys saw the clip we just played where I had all these little objects. And one of the things we do are these little figures. I don't know if Aaron can come on and show you. But we basically allow the young people to use these figures to tell their stories, and it allows them to kind of like get some distance from it and gain some perspective on it. And we feel like it really allows, you know, the young people to be able to be vulnerable with their peers, and because a lot of times we work in groups, and with us, you know, to be able to really tell their story and use the little figures to do so. So yeah, so just to finish, I am just so grateful to be a part of this work, and thank you to Glenn and David for joining us tonight, and the whole cast and crew. It's great to be here with you guys, and yeah, thank you for everyone being here.
Thank you, Justine. So at this point, we want to open it up to any questions or comments that anyone in the audience might have. So just if you want to ask a question, turn your video on and unmute yourself and go for it. So, and thank you all for being here. And thanks to all of the presenters today. It was inspiring and wonderful to hear all of you speak. Thank you.
I was wondering how much of your performances are scripted and how much are improvised?
Well, they're improvised in the creation process, but once they're created, they're usually scripted. Certain things will be improvised to a certain extent, like sometimes when people are doing solo dances, like I think Joseph, you still improvise your solo to a certain extent. Is that correct? I don't know if Joseph is there, but
Yes, I'm here. Yes. Just about every time I improvise. There's some parts that are like set, but most of it is improvised.
yeah. But most of the things become set over time. Once you know, we have a long rehearsal process, and once we've gotten to the point where we're showing it, I mean, we do several like in progress showings where we're reworking things and changing things. But once we get it ready and in a set form, then it becomes set. Anyone else? Well, I guess.
I have a question.
Okay, sure.
Sorry, do I have to put my camera on? Hold on. Hi. It's so nice to see you guys, and everyone spoke so beautifully. And I just, and it's great to hear sort of how things have progressed with you individually since the show. I just thought, I don't know, this question just came to my head, but maybe it's crazy. The idea of like the parts having different names is so intriguing to me. So I was wondering if anyone would be willing to like share like some examples of like parts that you have, or I don't know, it's just kind of like fun because it sparks the imagination a little bit about what kind of parts anybody might have. And so I was just wondering if you wanted to talk about that or go into any detail with it, if you're comfortable with that.
Anybody want to jump in there with some of their parts? Names of some of their parts?
Yeah, I can jump in first. Hi, Laura. It's nice to see you.
You too.
So one of the parts that I can talk about is in Good Grief. I have a bag lady. That's the term we use. If anyone on here has ever heard of Erykah Badu's song Bag Lady, that's who it's inspired by. But really it was just because in doing the internal family systems therapy, you know, these visualizations that I was having while I was doing this parts work was that I just had this part that was very old and tattered and tired and was just carrying all these bags and luggage and coats and things and just completely, you know, hunched over trying to drag these things along with her everywhere she went. And I just couldn't understand. And as time went on and, you know, going through the process, I've learned that this is like my big part that holds all these small parts. It's all these things that, you know, I hold on to and refuse to let go of. And each of those bags in their individual way is their own unburdening process that needs to, you know, get started next. But I just think that one's interesting because you know, you don't hear too often that somebody's part is called like a bag lady. Normally it's like a shame or a guilt or something like that.
Anyone else have any parts they want to name?
I was during the I also did the IFS training. So on the back of my like notebook, as they came to me, I was like scribbled down the part that came to me. So I'll give you guys a few. I have my warrior part, my you can do more part, my I'm fine part, my negotiator, my caretaker part, and the list goes on.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I can share. I've been going through some difficult personal things this year, and my sad part has been really present for me. And one of the beautiful things like, you know how you can so quickly, like, it's just a human thing to get like very overwhelmed by an emotion. And in IFS, I guess you can have like parts that are like emotions. And so my sad part has been very, at times, overwhelming for me. And one of the things that I think is really dope about IFS is like, you can like talk to your part. Like it allows you to get a little space from it and not get so overwhelmed, you know, because I don't know about you guys, but I can certainly get into a place of just being so sad and crying and just feeling stuck in that, you know? And it's really cool because you can just kind of be there for that part. Instead of getting just completely overwhelmed by it, you can just be there for it. And I think there's a part of me right now that's being like, oh, that sounds corny. But it really works, guys. Try it.
Anyone else have a question?
I do actually. I'm not so much sure it's a question, but oh, I'm supposed to do my video, right? I was really interested in the conversation with Glenn. And I wanted to know a little bit more about your journey, because it sounds like, you know, in 5 years, you just sort of created this program and you're working with IFS for yourself, and now you're getting really ready to bring it to your organization and the people that you're working with. And I would like to know more about you and more about what you're doing, if that's appropriate here.
Thank you for the question. I think the best way to put it is it's just been a hell of a journey. Like I said, I did 21 years in prison. I went in when I was 19, came home in 2010, and I honestly don't feel worthy. I don't know why I've had such opportunities. I know that you know, I'm just dedicating my life to try to create better communities, to create a better world. And I always say that today I'm just trying to be the guy that I feel like I needed when I was a young kid. And I think that's what motivates me today. So I wake up every day motivated. And I think that all of us together, I think we all just have great roles to play. So yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. So I think that I'm doing the work that I'm passionate about. I wouldn't want to do anything else. I need therapy every day. So I feel like it's a perfect marriage. Me getting to study the IFS system, me getting to work with this population that a lot of people have given up on. So, you know, so I get to do the work on myself as well as just to try to give back to community and to give back to society. But yeah.
That's really beautiful. In that one sentence, I want to be the person that I needed when I was young.
Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. I'm very touched by that. And I think I would like to be the same thing, the person I needed when I was young. Thank you for your work. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Anyone else with any more questions? Yes, and thank you, Glenn. We're so happy to have you here. Glad this worked out.
Thank you for having me, Aaron.
Aaron, I would like to give a shout out.
Absolutely, David.
When we were able to have Dr. Dick Schwartz attend Everett in Providence, that he was so moved. I just wanted to acknowledge that, as Justine said, that he provided 4 scholarships for Everett. to be trained in that. And then that was also part of what the connection to actually have the Everett company perform this at the national conference in Colorado the year before last, which was a really big deal. And I will brag for them. A standing O, not a seat in the House left, and a standing O. They just really brought it in a very powerful way. And they were just going to New Mexico, or I should say we were going to New Mexico just before COVID. So I'm hoping for some extra life for good grief.
Thank you. Thank you, David, and for remembering that. And also, since we're talking about plugs, hey, Justine, do you have that book handy again?
Oh.
David wrote a book.
Wow.
And Justine, do you have it handy to just put it on camera for a second? It's available on Amazon. I don't know, David, is it available in like a local bookstore or anything else also?
Not yet, but it's available on Amazon in the soft cover and also all the different ebooks, iBook, Kindle.
Great.
At this time.
So go out and get that.
Thank you.
And anybody else?
I think, was there Cindy who wanted to come up and ask a question?
Cindy, you're still muted.
There we go. Now, can you hear me? Sorry about that.
Yes, thank you.
My question is for Aisha and anybody else who has done EMDR in combination with their IFS. And so I'm wondering, when you are doing EMDR reprocessing, do you find that you are sort of moving within different parts, or do you sort of find that you kind of enter EMDR as a certain part and sort of stay with it? Or maybe it's a combination of all. I'm just kind of curious about how the two intersect for those folks that have had experience with working with both types of therapy.
Aisha, you have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, so when I did the EMDR, we didn't go to a certain part. We after a discussion of given like details in my life when we first started therapy, he gave me one of the things that I mentioned, maybe like an experience or something, and I closed my eyes and I went into that experience, and within that I had a lot of thoughts and feelings of what I had experienced in the past that was all coming up. And so basically, I would say like there were parts, I guess, that were talking to me, saying like, why did you do that? And sort of what Grace was explaining earlier, like just really getting on myself. So I was like talking to myself, and then there would be other things that I noticed in the memories, maybe like the another person and the way they talk to me and try to comfort me in the moment, and just I don't know, just different parts were talking in the one experience. I wasn't able to say which ones were which. It wasn't like that's my nervous part and that's this part. It was just like me talking to myself, and I just understood it was a bunch of different parts. I don't know if that answers the question.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it sounds like a very powerful combination using those two, and even deeper understanding of the processes of the reprocessing that you're going through, and having that background of all the different parts. So thank you for sharing your story. Thank you to everybody. This was a really wonderful presentation. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. Very meaningful.
Thank you.
Just one quick thing too is that in answer to your question, myself and Ken Jager, we presented at the conference before this one on the integration of EMDR and IFS. So we're both trained in that. And what we did is we established a framework and a foundation of how to combine those. And as Laisha said, sometimes it's part of the IFS system, but you're still using the bilateral stimulation in the EMDR framework. Because I work a lot in trauma, there's been times where we have done EMDR with a specific part. And there's a thing called unblending where, as Justine was referring to, you ask parts to separate and watch. And so that protective system is not jumping in and taking a person out or maybe dissociating. And you're able to work with that, what we would call an exile that has to carry the shame and the trauma. And I found those two modalities together can be a very, very powerful thing as well. But it's really helpful to know where you're going, because if not, you can get lost in both modalities. So
Thank you.
hopefully that's helpful.
It is. Thank you.
Any other questions from anybody?
Well, I just want to say, Katie just put in the chat, there is a full-length video of Good Grief, which is the show we've been talking about. And it's available for you all to watch on YouTube. So you guys can check that out. It's in the chat. And yeah, the whole thing's online. It's not the same as seeing it in person, but it's pretty close. So.
And I just want to thank everybody for sharing so heartfelt and you know, your own vulnerability and truths, and really appreciate what everyone brought tonight. Glenn, it was great to get to know you. I hope we connect in the future, have some opportunities to cross paths again. And thanks to all the cast of Good Grief for all of your great work back then, and also David for your unending generosity when it comes to Everett. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was awesome.
Good night, everybody.